Okay, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Today is July 26th. It's the fourth Sunday in July. So we have our Cosmobiology Institute research meeting to discuss anything that's of interest to you in research. Maybe you're interested in conducting research, maybe you already are. Maybe there's some issues and topics. There have been a lot recently. About research methods, about what's going on. So the Cosmobiology Institute website is cosmobiology.org. And at the website, it has a few different names. The shortest one is cosmobiology.org. Is, yeah, there it is. If you click on join, it's one of the things I want to mention in case you're not aware of it. Click on join at the website. It takes you to the Go Colab. Some of you may be familiar with it. It's a popular platform for connecting people. And it's a good place to put your information in here, see what's going on. Um, yeah, I haven't been keeping up with it myself recently. Oh, hold on one second. Sorry. Okay. Sorry about that. I started some tea and my whistle of the tea kettle. Okay, so yes, I wanted to tell you about that. Let me go back to our notes. Um, in the email that you received, it does review all the meetings. And on my time on the East Coast of the United States, we're meeting here Sunday at 8 a.m. And then we meet again Monday at 8 p.m. This is the time that's especially good for people in Europe and Asia, and most of our attendees here are in Europe, with the exception of Vincent, who's in Canada. And Vincent, I don't know if you're there, but he is often here. I work with Vincent and with Christopher. Christopher cannot make it today to help monitor things. I do not have any topics yet, so someone can take the microphone. I'll also check the chat. Is there a topic of interest? Um, those of you who know me, I'm like a wind-up toy. I can start on a topic and talk forever, but I'm much more interested in anything on your mind, questions, things you feel strongly about. We've had some discussions, you might say almost debates on some things. I think that's very good. Um, Research is an endless field. It's like music or anything else. It goes on and on and on. There's lots of different methods, techniques, approaches in different contexts. And what I've found in my work in research methods, as I've worked in different areas, like in biotech and sociological research, every group has their own set of tools and approaches that they've gotten accustomed to and that they use within the context of their work. So, anybody want to start off with a topic, question, anything related to research? This is our chance to brainstorm together. I'm checking the chat and you can unmute. There's only a half a dozen of us. Okay, Bernard unmuted.
Yeah, let me see if I get my camera working as well.
Yep, there you are.
Um, my battery is almost out, and I thought we could perhaps address something which is a bit of a follow-up of some of the discussion from last month. And I'm sorry that it slipped my mind at that time, but one of the questions that we addressed was why the power of astrology was the effective power of the positive results that we find in astrology are so weak. And there is there's something that suggests that they're going to become even weaker in the future. And I'm sorry that this slipped my mind. It's something that's very much a part of my practice, and it should definitely be a part of the initiative of the institute's uh, beginning of a database, and that is a finding of Gauquelin that is quite often forgotten, and that is that he had a significant improvement of the power of his results by removing those born artificially. And artificially means either by cesarean or chemically induced. This is very interesting because if you Google it, you're going to find the foremost acknowledgement of it. You're going to find amongst the critics of astrology, and this is something which the critics of astrology seem to appreciate more than those that are endeavoring in astrology. And for me, this is a rather telling circumstance if we can judge from what one immediately encounters when one is searching the internet. So basically, what does this mean? This means if we look at artificial births, I think at present, in a nation like the United States, they're around 60%.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is something, and they're increasing exponentially as well.
Right.
This is also known. Another variant of it is known, which is even worse, is known in India, where the well-off, they actually choose when to have their child based on so-called auspicious times. Then it gets even worse because then they're actually using the Droitish variant of astrological theory to try to improve the lives of their children. So
Yeah.
we have several spheres that are converging, and those part of it's one of the reasons why I lived in India for a while was because it's one of the societies that retain the occult cosmological dimension, and they let that infuse their lives. But it doesn't make research easier, especially when you combine it with the possibility of artificial birth.
Yeah. Wow. Um, let's start at the beginning. I made notes here on the screen. These are very, very interesting and important topics. I'm going to start at the top. You called it power. I'm going to change it to effect size because we often use the word power to mean how effective a statistical test is at finding a result. So why is the effect size of astrology so weak? Uh, so first of all, I agree with the assumption. Effect sizes are weak in astrology. The classic example is the Gauquelin research. And of course, effect size means how big is the result. I mean, I know we all know this, but just to make it clear, if you're comparing the height of people in different countries, and in one country the people are average height 5'8", and in another country they're 5'10", in feet and inches, the effect size is 2 inches, or you could do it as a percent of the height. Um, and the smaller the effect size, the larger the group of people you need to have to get statistical significance. So if there's only 2 inches difference in height, um, between the average person in two different countries, if you have 50 people, you probably will not get statistical significance if you have a sample of 50. If you have a sample of 10,000, you probably will detect it. And that's one of the problems with a lot of astrological research is needing these huge sample sizes to see anything. And then that means that since the effect size is small, it's very easy for some other factor to be involved, either a problem with the research design or some extraneous variable. And then connected to this idea, the small effect sizes, is that Gauquelin found that artificial births, meaning cesarean, a surgery, or chemically induced, don't work as well as a non-induced birth. We'll call it natural birth. If that's the case, we're in trouble because I think it's Brazil has like 90% induced births. I mean, I mean, you can Google it to verify, but I've researched this a little bit because I was curious for the same reason. Um, yeah, and this can be increasing in a lot of countries because people love technology and they love their office hours, etc. And um, yeah, so. Any thoughts about this from any of you? I'll let some of you start this off, and these concerns that are affecting our research. Um, yeah, how do we proceed with all these problems? Anybody want to start off? Um, no. And let me check the chat. Nobody's in the chat. Um, well, I'll make a general statement about it, and then hope you guys can pick up with it. Um, One idea that's important to me in research is how homogeneous um, is your population and how well does your sample reflect the population. And this is just a general principle in which I can frame this. And the bottom line is the more homogeneous, the better. The problem is getting sufficient homogeneous uh, data. And what I mean by homogeneous is how similar are they? For example, when I started doing research on athletes, because Gauquelin found athletes have Mars in certain sectors. So we have thousands and thousands of athletes. And I started making graphs and data visualization. But when I broke the athletes down to sport, basketball versus football, etc. Um, I got much better results. And of course, that makes sense because baseball players are going to have more in common with each other than they do with football players, etc. So the more homogeneous, the more similar what you're studying is, of course, the better results you're going to get. That's maybe obvious in retrospect, but it's something we don't necessarily always act on. Try to get it as homogeneous as possible. And then, of course, within any sport, there's I mean, there's different positions, there's different styles of play, etc. Um, the less homogeneous your data, the more people you can find to research. So there's a trade-off there. Um, but if you remove the artificial births, you have more homogeneous data, right? I mean, they're more similar. They're all born naturally, and that increases your probability of getting positive results because it's possible that that heterogeneity is weakening your results because they have different things going on. So I always like to make my data as homogeneous as possible, even if I'm not sure that these other variables can be important. Of course, the more sure I am, the more I want to do it. Um, so that's just a general statement. I think that's kind of obvious, but just to overview. And Vincent's got something in the chat here. Um, he says, I don't think Galcoin rigorously demonstrated this. So Galcoin had some indications of induced birth, but I don't think, Vincent doesn't think it was that solid. Um, so Bernard or anybody else, I mean, how strong was Galcoin's findings? I remember that he talked about it. My memory was towards the end of his research, and it was not not super high confidence in it, but some indication. I don't remember the details.
Santino,
Yeah.
hello. I have something to say about homogeneity. That you said something very interesting about you try to get homogeneous groups. Yesterday, I'm designing a research about connecting the big five test with astrology. And I had a long discussion with ChatGPT, and he explained me, he gave me an idea I never thought. He's that for the moment, he will help me document um, virtual tests obtained by historians and thinkers who work on celebrities and just simulate passing the test to give you their profile. But the quality could be different from one group to another. Like American presidents are very good in the research. If you look at artists and everything, the quality, it's like a bit like Rodden, A, B. So speaking about replication, he told me you should not replicate your result with different quality group. In other words, if you find a model with American president, which is homogeneous, and you try to replicate with a different quality simulations like artists, you're wrong. So he told me just take the trouble to, from the very beginning, if you intend to work with different quality groups, to separate randomly among all those groups, those you want to use as replication, mix them already at the beginning. That's brilliant. I never thought of that.
Okay.
I
So
don't know if I explained it well. My
no,
English is
I
not.
think
Maybe
I
you
think you
can
explained.
explain it better than me.
No, you explained it very well, but just to rephrase what you're saying to make sure that I understand it as well.
Yeah.
Um, if you're testing the big five, which I think everybody knows, these are five personality traits, agreeableness, and there's four others
Mm.
that have been extremely well supported in psychological research that they exist. So it's an excellent thing to study because they're very well confirmed over
Mm.
decades that these five basic personality traits do exist. They're discrete personality traits. Um, so if you use, for example, American political leaders, presidents, senators, whatever, to build the model and develop it, excuse me, when you get more data to confirm it, also use American political leaders. Don't even use French political leaders if possible.
Mm.
Hopefully you have more data, which means do not use all your data in building the model.
And
And
the reason
ChatGPT
is
is a,
the reason is
yeah.
not because they're French and the other are American. The reason is that the simulation could be different quality. You got different tests of the big five. There's the big test with 240 questions, but there's also a
Oh,
more common test with 60 questions. So if you use group with different quality simulation, you may be wrong.
oh, wow. I hadn't thought of that. So the test itself
Yes,
may
differ.
be
May dif
slightly different or evoke slightly different responses
yeah,
in
less,
different,
yes,
we'll say
lesser
countries,
quality
regions.
because it's smaller. The 60 question is very common, but it's not as accurate as the 240 questions. So historians and the thinkers who create those simulation, which is fantastic. I didn't know it existed. It's crazy that for us to do research, there's a lot of them. Do different quality simulation.
Oh, wow. So the simulation is, if I understand this correctly, is they assign the five traits to say, President Obama or President Trump or whoever, um, based on their, I guess, behavior, actions, etc. So even though they didn't take the test, the psychological test, they're simulating what the test would produce
Mhm.
correctly. So
Yes.
this means we have a huge sample size, because they can simulate the results of the test, but that simulation process, excuse me, gets implemented in different ways. So you have to make sure that your test data is homogeneous as well as your subjects.
Yeah.
Yeah, your testing mechanism. And
Yes.
that's something we often don't think about. And ChatGPT thought of that, like, because sometimes we take what we're studying, like the big five, and we start to reify it like it's a real, like it's an object, but it's actually the result of some assessment. Well, what
Mhm.
was that assessment? And was it done the same way in different places? Well, in this case, ChatGPT is saying we have these simulations, but they're not done the same way everywhere.
Mhm.
So that's really that I'm glad you shared that. It's something I rarely think about, and we need to think about um, where these numbers come from, and do they come from the same process
Yes.
or not? That's
Yes.
yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, so it's another kind of homogeneity, not just the people, but the
Exactly.
assessment tool. Um, so does anybody have any information on how well did Gauquin show that on the topic of induced births? I mean, um,
I don't
No.
remember the numbers, but like I said when I introduced it, um, this is something which uh, the critics feel is interesting. And of course, one of the reasons is that uh, this could, if this holds, it's something that also can indicate a the formative causation as well,
yeah,
because the circumstances of a natural birth are entirely different from that of both cesarean, where there's no pressure at all applied to the fetus, and this, of course, is an opportunity for the present electromagnetic fields to be impressed upon the nervous system. And then one may consider, but when you have a chemically induced birth, the fetus is uh, has pressure applied
Mhm.
during the birth, but that is not true because the convulsions of a chemically induced birth are not the same as the convulsion pattern in a natural birth.
mm,
So there is difference.
yeah,
I remember, I read Gauquelin twice completely. And I remember he didn't make a real research about that. He just tried to explain that his results, the quality or the p-value, the quality of the p-value declined as far as time was closer and closer to now. So he said maybe it's caused by the induced birth. But you know that Gauquelin was very clear about this fact. The child, the, the child choose the moment of birth according to what is already before any connection with astrology. So he chose the moment according to the stars. But a lot of people don't agree with this. A lot of people, especially those who believe in reincarnation, think that the child, that even that big event of inducing birth is already included in the fate of the baby or the human being. So it's part of the big plan. I don't say I believe that, but you understand it's a really different position. So I don't know what to think about that because
Yeah,
there's
so
no
if
real
we,
protocol that has been done about that.
yeah, so if we separated out induced births from natural births, first, there are two benefits. Number one, we would see if there's any difference. If if it's true that the natural births work better, they give better effect sizes, such as in the Big Five study, we find that those people born naturally
Mhm.
um, fit some astrological configuration extremely well, but it does not fit as well.
Mhm.
Um, that is important to know. Secondly, as I think both Vincent and Bernard are pointing out, has huge implications for theory. Like, wow. I mean, if it's the same or if it's different, it tells us a lot about the theory. Like, if it's different, maybe it's because the baby is has chosen a time to be born and now it's not that time, or some other reason. Anyway, it would be hugely important for understanding
I think I was not
how
clear.
astrology works.
In Gauquelin, the baby chose a time according to the stars. If there's induced birth, the baby doesn't choose really, but it's already included in the big plan. It's
Yeah.
different.
Well, in
But
any case, if there's a
the problem to get a protocol is that getting the information about is this birth induced or not. Good luck. Where do you
yeah,
find this?
yeah, it's hard to find it. It's
Yeah.
I
not
have
on.
to say that I mean this discussion is becoming even weirder than the last one because if we can, I mean, I don't. It was a long time ago I read Gauquelin, but as I remember, there was actually what he did was, but I might be wrong. I might be remembering it incorrectly, but that he removed the um, the cesareans and the chemically induced births,
No.
and this says a lot about the quality of his birth data, which is of course lacking in astrology database, unfortunately. But I remember that his p-value increased when he removed these. So, um, but it might be that what Vincent is saying, that is, he just did a time series and tried to explain. But I do feel that it was something that he had information. This is, of course, very important detail. Did he have information? I think he did access actual, uh, not
No,
just
no,
time
he
records.
did not. He did not
He
have
didn't.
that information as far as I
He
have
he
read
didn't have the
the
hospital
studies.
journals.
But
Okay.
what he did is he removed or just researched what happened after a certain date where you can
Okay.
expect more cesarean.
Right.
And
And it's in the
so
70s. He could see that it was in the 70s that it changed as well, because
yeah,
that's
but
when
no,
they started with.
yeah, even in the 60s or 50s, I believe that he did that. But
Yeah, there was
I
yeah.
refer to, I try to find it. There is some information. A colleague of yours, maybe you know him, Nick Colleström, has just published a book about the Coquelin effect, where he summarize all what is known and also add new information. I was looking whether he has made a point of that. I could not directly find it, but I see some research where they split between data after 30 and before 1930, something like that, in order to research several effects. But I do agree with Vincent in reading the original papers and studies. You cannot find a rigorous proof of this.
Yeah, I made a
Okay.
check. I made a check, and I have
Yeah.
an answer. Actually, Bernard, we're both right, and we're both wrong.
Great.
Whenever about that problem, whenever detailed obstetrical record were available, Gauquelin analyzed these cases separately. So you're right, I was wrong. And reported that the planetary effects he observed in spontaneous births are greatly reduced or absent. So he's done it whenever it was possible. It was not a
Mm.
rigorous, but he played with that.
But he
You're
tried it.
right. And so you remember it correctly. However, in his large studies of eminent people, he relied on official birth record, which generally did not indicate whether the birth has been natural, induced, or by cesarean. Consequently, he could not systematically exclude such birth from his samples. It was not. It was only based on the date of birth, because we know that
Yes.
induced birth were not practiced at the beginning of the century. Ideally, modern replication of his studies would compare spontaneous birth, blah 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 blah. So we were. So your remembrance was good, because he tells us that he's done it. I didn't remember that, but he didn't done it systematically. Just a few. I don't know on what extent he's done it, but it was not
Mm.
okay. Okay,
Yeah. But then
that's it.
comes the other issue, which is it diverts empiricism and lands us in high weirdness. I think is to even begin. I don't even know how I would test that the child chooses the time of birth. That's like, whoa. I didn't even, I couldn't have guessed that Gauquelin would have suggested something that far out, you know.
Yes, but Bernard, it was. I'd say I remember. He said it's like this. It was a metaphorically. It's like if the child chooses according to his genetic background and everything, he will choose his time of birth according to the stars. It's, in other words, there's nothing really happening that change who is that person because of the moment he is born. He's already something, and according to what he is, he will be born at this time according to the stars. This is what he said. So choose the time of birth was a metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've got up here the chat
The only
GPT.
person
Yeah, go ahead.
the only person that has seriously studied this problem is John Wilner. He was analyzing the Atracasi databases, and he came up with a soul burst time, spirit, the time of that was about on average over 4 hours before the physical burst. So he makes a difference, and that was based upon all the readings by Edgar Casey. And Edgar Casey was, of course, independently checked for all his predictions in the medical field, but also for other. And so that is the only way I know that some can be tested, and some reincarnation therapists also working with astrology, try to make a connection between pre-birth choices and what happened after. That's the only category of studies I know of. But of course, that is another kind of data that they use than the physical results we after.
Yeah, I want to make two
But
comments.
there's a
One
lot of
is,
literature on that as well.
yeah, two comments I want to make from my question I asked ChatGPT about this. Um, and it says, in regards to what Galcoin said, it confirms what Vincent also saw, is that rather than planets acting directly on personality, Galcoin proposed something like, they're not quoting him, the fetus naturally initiates labor at times that statistically coincide with particular planetary positions. So, what happens is that with natural birth, most babies are born a little bit before sunrise. So there's a circadian rhythm, a daily rhythm, which makes sense biologically. The woman is going to, be responding to time of day. And so babies, um, are not born as we might suspect. They're not born randomly through the day. They peak at certain hours, like before sunrise. And it's very funny when you look at induced, not funny, but it's interesting. When you look at induced births, they're between 9 and 5, 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. And sometimes it dips around lunchtime. So this is clearly and remains fairly strong through the evening. But no
Yeah.
babies are born in the middle of the night. So it's
Uh,
office
and,
hour births.
and also, Santino, I remember about what you're saying that Gauquelin recognized the fact that because of the circadian natural cycle, there's an effect on fast, quick, small planets like Venus and Mercury in houses closest to the ascendant because it's
Right.
close to the sun.
Yeah. Yeah. Sun, Mercury, and Venus, their distribution changes in very obvious ways. And then the outer planets are going to, you know, move as well. But Sun, Mercury, and Venus very clearly,
There's
they're
an
going to move
effect
out
because
of,
they're close to the sun, so
they're
they'll
always close
be
to the
always
sun.
in house 1 and
Yeah.
12.
Yeah. 27 degrees or so, 28 degrees for Mercury and
Yeah,
47,
yeah,
48
yeah.
degrees. So, Mercury and Venus also would be moving out of the 12th first houses,
And by the way, we remember that he didn't find any important effect about Mercury and Venus. Venus may be connected to criminality, if I remember well, and Mercury, nothing. So did he fail to observe effect because he was not too eager to look after that? I don't know, because he knew it was distorted by circadian rhythm. I don't
yeah,
know.
I don't know. The second thing I wanted to mention is on how we would test this. I got a surprise from ChatGPT, which I often do because it knows much more than than I do. It says that okay, was the somewhere down here. A contemporary replication using millions of births could directly compare the magnitude of any. Oh, here's what I want to say. Given your work on vibrational astrology, you guys know these AI platforms know everything you've ever told them. Um, and your emphasis on empirical testing, this hypothesis is actually testable today in a way that Gauquin could only dream of. Modern birth registries often record, and I didn't know this, they record whether it's spontaneous, induced, scheduled cesarean, emergency cesarean, augmentation with oxytocin. and they also tend to have exact birth times. So this is recorded somewhere. I don't know if it's on birth certificates they tend to give to people, but um, ChatGPT is suggesting this could be rigorously tested now.
But does you don't think that that's a potential false identification by ChatGPT, that they're actually referring to birth journals rather than
It says
uh,
it says
registries?
it says modern birth registries. You know, ChatGPT, just like a human being, can be wrong. Um, and what I found with AI is I keep asking it questions like, in the United States, are these birth registries only with the government? Are they blah, blah? And then it digs deeper, and then sometimes it changes its mind or whatever. So yeah, I
Mm.
mean, we could continue this conversation, but at least so far, one thing that I know from talking to many, many dozens and dozens of nurses is that they all tell me the same thing who work in major hospitals, who work in delivery area, um, is that the United States is extremely litigious. So the possibility of a lawsuit is very high if anything goes wrong. So they said that they record everything extremely carefully in case, if the baby dies or anything happens or is, not normal, was it a problem in the hospital? And so it makes sense to me that at least in countries like the United States that are very worried about getting sued, that they're now recording all this stuff. Now, whether they actually do or not, I don't know. I mean, I find that ChatGPT and other AI is usually right on the first try, but we could keep talking to it. Anyway, be, and Bernard's other point that the cynics of astrology are more interested in this idea than astrologers. Um, I find that all the time. I mean, frankly, I've given up on talking to 99% of astrologers. They don't really seem to want to critically assess. I'm not necessarily even talking about statistics, but critically assess what you're saying. Um, I mentioned, for example, to a Hellenistic astrologer recently that if you use whole sign houses, that means that when a planet changes sign, 1/12 of the population now has, I mean, the entire population now has that planet in a new sign, that the waves should be clearer. But he said, he just dismissed it as, we don't have to think about that. We don't have to think about it. I mean,
If
it's
it
nothing
was
to,
more birth on the Bible, he would say, "Oh, that's great. Then we're all one of the 12
yeah,
tribes of Judah."
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, we need to critically assess any idea. And I mean, that would be a fact about whole sign houses. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but he doesn't even want to think about it. This is a prominent Hellenistic astrologer. So, yeah, I mean, astrologers in general don't seem to be concerned about a lot of things. And this is a big concern. Like, if an induced birth works different astrologically, oh my God, that's huge. How could we not be interested or curious? Um, So the scientific approach is generally to be open to possibilities that may or may not agree with our intuition, and it's a
And
possibility.
the answer to your question, how we could not be interested, is rather cynical. That's because it reduces our clientele as practitioners by half. And you're already on the margin, economically.
Uh, I'm laughing because you have to laugh or cry. I'm sure that that's true. That would reduce your yeah
I hate to be anecdotal. We're researchers,
yeah.
so I apologize for being anecdotal. But my son, my unique son, his birth has been induced. I was there. I took the time very accurately. But this is one case. I repeat, I apologize for stating that. This chart is one of the best fitting I ever seen, and
Hmm.
I've got rigorous objective tools with my expert system to determine the personality and the events with the curves and everything. Santino, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You have the same type of tools for the events. So it's one of the best match I've seen. That's curious. It's only anecdotal,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Um,
anecdotal when it's so close. Maybe I'm biased. I don't know.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I often say to people, everything starts anecdotally. That's what we start with personal observations,
Yes.
and then, we try to move on from there. But
Or even
yeah,
worse, there's some sort of spiritual involvement, trickery.
Why not? Why, I don't know, but why not?
So, I mean, if it was true that artificial births don't produce astrologically credible results, then the perfect thing for a demon or whatever to mess up your life is to make it look like your son is correctly born.
that's actually a good point because if our philosophy is that the astrology chart is a roadmap, I mean, one idea is as above, so below, you fit your chart. The other idea is that, in addition to that, is that it's a roadmap. It's something that's right for your soul to happen. And if you're born at the wrong time, then you're not able to live exactly the roadmap that you had intended. It's like it's I do it all the time when I'm driving. I make a wrong turn. It's like you've just made a wrong, you now get a set of instructions that were not exactly what you had
But some
intended.
people,
Therefore, we would expect
yeah, but
maybe
yeah.
less functionality, and that's something that could be
Mhm.
tested.
Yeah,
Not
but
as
Santino, some people could argue that the roadmap include that induced birth.
right. But one thing that could be looked at is, are people born in these various induced birth methods? Are they, I mean, there's so many, I don't know, you could really do the research because there's so many extraneous variables. But are they, what is their socioeconomic status? What is their physical health? But, are they somehow struggling more? But that could be due for many, many extraneous variables, which would be even more likely. The
But this is
um,
I think Groff did some work on this, and he regarding cesareans, he did find that there aren't as clear boundaries in
Hmm.
one's identity.
Oh, wow.
Uh, and the other thing that he found in his research was that those that were pulled out by the head. So now we're not talking about artificial birth, but at least the initiation of it. But it would be a less drawn out birth if you used one of these suction cups or what do you call it? Like I can't find the English word. Um, it's like a fork, that pulls out the baby.
Hmm.
Um, and his finding was that that will result in a more cerebral, nerdy type of person,
Oh, wow.
someone that's more caught up in their ideas. So
Wow.
there are a lot of factors that, if one is to believe
Mhm.
the Groff's research,
Yeah. Mhm.
uh, astrologers do not include.
Bernard, whatever the the tool to induce the birth, physical or suction or chemical, the main thing is that the very moment where it happens is not could be not is artificial, is not natural, and so people like Gokul argue that it's not connected to the stars, whatever the mean.
What do you mean specifically? What
So
meaning is that?
the
The
importance
consequence or what?
no, the main topic is the gap between the moment of birth and the moment of astrological intended birth according to the stars. So this moment is different when the birth is induced by any type of means. It could be chemical, it could be physical, it could be. So this is not the main issue. Maybe it's important, but for the first on the top, the main issue is the difference, the gap between the two moments.
Right. That's what's interesting astrologically, but the work by Graf and he was working with Tarnas. So Tarnas and Graf, Tarnas was doing the astrology, and Graf was more into how consciousness and personality is embodied. So there's actually a meeting between ideas which an astrologer usually wouldn't include, but Tarnas wanted to invite. And if you don't know who Graf is, he was one of the fathers of LSD therapy, so he was very much into. But he went away from psychedelics and worked with holotropic breathing instead to induce these states where the people could return to the birth moment, and even to he also includes the environment of the womb. So one of the results which he found was that you could actually considering that we're talking a bit about chemicals when we're talking about artificial birth, already in the womb, he says that somehow if the mother was using illicit substances, that would come out by the positions of Pluto at the moment of birth. So there's actually, which is interesting because that means that there's a backwards reckoning from the time of birth. Also, it's very fascinating work if you want to get into how modes of birth are related to personality and astrology.
Yeah, so I'm reading what ChatGPT says about it. It's confirming what you said. It was primarily the work of Graf, and it's wasn't carefully done statistically and so on. It's more in a clinical type setting, or what people are experiencing with the LSD, etc. Was there empirical research? Not in the sense you usually mean. It knows me because that I mean when I say empirical research. Um, Given your own emphasis, it's based on clinical observations, thousands of psychotherapy cases with recurring experiential patterns, case confirmations, large scale statistics essentially absent. But he did collect a lot of um, cases. He just doesn't have control groups and all that. But it is thousands of cases. And basically he says that when Groff claimed that many people undergoing deep altered states spontaneously relived experiences uh, that correspond to biological stages of birth. So a person that had a peaceful intrauterine life, so this is even before birth, tends to have trust, oceanic feeling, security.
Yeah.
The labor begins, but the cervix is closed. They tend to feel trapped, hopeless, etc. The passage through the birth control canal, intense struggle, aggression, sexuality, survival. So people who intensely struggle or aggressive, high sexuality, need for survival, may have had a intense passage through the birth canal. So
Mhm.
anyway,
Thank you for sharing that,
yeah,
Bernard. So there's a lot of things I didn't know about that. And when you spoke about the mother using illicit substances that could be seen through Pluto, I think there's more to it. Astrology doesn't work like that. Pic- it's Pluto would be a big pixel in the big picture, but it's a bit naive to attribute this state of fact only to one planet. Astrology doesn't work like that. It's multifactorial, holistic, and every planets and factors are pixels. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, we're still figuring out how astrology works. That's why we're here having a discussion. But now Santino has come to how he finds these different phases of the birth are related to the to Saturn and the trans-Saturnians. And as you see, Pluto there is related to the third phase in the process. So that's where difficulty can arise from a birth process perspective. But what's interesting about Pluto is that that's the one trans-Saturnian that he relates to a poisoned womb. So um, his conclusions from the people that he has known what the circumstances of the mother's possible chemical dependencies were.
That should be tested because all that is speculative, very interesting and intelligent, but speculative. But how to find a protocol to test that? Wow, I don't know how to do it because the data.
yeah, be very difficult. I can't think
Yeah,
of a clear way. But one of the things ChatGPT emphasizes is that this was the work of Stanislav Grof. I mean, this Grof did it. Grof and Tarnas were friends, and Tarnas comes in and just applies some astrological symbolism to it. So Tarnas is really just because in my question I asked about both of them, so it answered me. I said Mikhail Gogolin may have said that the no, where's my question down here?
But Tarnas does. I mean, I've read Graf's work, but I in Cosmos and Psyche, Richard Tarnas does address the clinical aspects of this work by Graf previously. So he has a definite interest in the results, and Richard Tarnas isn't. He's not very interested in empirical research anyway.
Right.
So so that kind of works together.
Yes, yeah, yeah. So I mentioned, I believe this, what research did Stan Grof do on the effect of how a baby was born on their personality? I believe this was done with Rick Tarnas, and it just corrected me that he was not, Rick studied what Grof did, basically. Um, okay, so yeah, all these different variables. Okay, anybody want to add anything or bring up a different topic? Anything? Let me look at the chat, see if anything's in the chat. Um, okay, nothing there. Okay, we're all pretty quiet. Ton, you've done a lot of recent studying of Gauquelin. Um, do you have anything on your mind related to this discussion? Because I know you've been studying.
No,
So,
that has been well addressed. I will search for more info about what Coquelin has done exactly in
right.
all the books and reports I have. But I when I find something, I will report that.
Okay, good. One of the things that I did many years ago was I reanalyzed the Gauquelin data, and I saw some really surprising things. I have two YouTube videos I made. Did Gauquelin prove astrology part one? Did Gauquelin prove astrology part two? I think it's in part two, but I'm not sure. In these two videos, they look like
My friends,
they look like this. So this this one's only 12 minutes long. I think the other one's about a half hour. But one of the things that I found was that Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto actually show up concentrated in certain houses as well. So Gauquelin often says, well, they didn't do anything. But when I create the distributions of where the planets are, they actually do peak. I think it's in part
hello, my
one.
friends, namaste.
I show graphs of, I've got graphs like this that shows different planets in different sectors and what happens. And it ends up that Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto could possibly be important as well. Anyway, it's fun to actually to reanalyze. I reanalyzed everything and looked at what the distributions look like. Do they really peak? And I was kind of surprised when I actually just graphed it over again. Um, and one of the surprises was that the Mars effect is clear, but most of the others um, actually were not that, just visually, they didn't actually jump out as really as obvious as I thought they might be, according to what Gauquelin said. Is mainly the Mars effect was conspicuous. And the other thing that surprised me was that you can make an argument for the placements of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, at least according to what I looked at and how I graphed it. So
Well, Santino, it's a long time I want to tell you this. The visual is very interesting to stimulate our intuition and give us ideas. But the real thing is the numbers. I mean, you look at something, it looked like, but finally, is it significant or not? And something not visually conspicuous could be significant by addition of certain things that we don't see.
yeah, I think it's in part two that I do the statistical
Oh,
analysis,
okay.
and the statistics were not that impressive, except for the Mars effect. When I did it, it was not at the level of what I just, wasn't quite the same. And then I created
I don't
a
understand. Are you
harmonics model, and I combined the harmonics model
Yeah,
with the Gauquelin, and then
but
the
are you
Gauquelin started to look even better.
oh, but are you telling us, for instance, that the actor's Jupiter effect is not what Gauquelin tells us? I mean
I would
that
have to watch my videos again. It
oh,
says here I made
okay.
it
For me also, it's a long time ago.
it says here 13 years ago. So
Yeah.
I don't even remember what I did yesterday, let alone 13 years
Hmm.
ago. So, yeah, so, I'd have to watch it again
Okay.
and go over it and see exactly what I concluded. I know the general result was that the Mars effect was much more outstanding. I mean, extremely more outstanding statistically and visually
Don't you think
than,
that we're a bit, as a collectivity of researchers, we're still a bit more, no, still a bit too much obsessed with Gauquelin results. I'm a big admirer of his methods. I read it because he's inspiring me, but his findings are not so interesting for me. It's,
yeah, my conclusion is the same. I'll tell you, funny story about why I reanalyzed the Gauquelin data. I was doing research on 7 vibration and scientists. I was getting very good results. It all made sense. Then I looked at some new data and I got no results at all. Like this happens all the time. I think I'm onto something. It's like, wow, this is working great. I get some new data, zero. More data, zero. It's like, okay, I'm really frustrated at this point. It was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I was exhausted. And the next morning, when I woke up, I said, I need like be like a shot of whiskey. I need something good, for my, I don't drink, but just a saying. Um, I said, I'm going to analyze the Gauquelin data because I had it, in the program and everything, because I want to feel good. And I know Gauquelin found something. That was literally one of the most depressing days of my life. And I'm actually serious. That's how fanatic I am about astrology. It's actually more important to me than a lot of things in my personal life. I just care about it. I want to know. My curiosity is greater than most other things people would take an interest in. And the results were so poor. And what really was depressing was one of the beauties of the Gauquelin research to me is that it works for, all these professions. You have a Jupiter effect for politics and all this stuff, and Saturn for science or whatever. But it was only the one that really stood out, and that was just for me was personally deflating 13 years ago too.
Something that goes in your in the same direction than you. A few years ago, we signed an article conjointly with Kiyoshi Tarvanen and I, but he was very generous. He's done the big job. And there's a part of this article where we demonstrate that Gauquelin was confirmation bias about Mercury, I think, or I don't remember. And he excluded some facts. So he was kept in that type of bad research. So I say that, but at the same time, I'm big fan of his rigor, of his methods. He's a first, and not only his method, but his immense gift he made to the community with the data. It's incredible, but we should not be too much mesmerized by his findings.
Right. Yeah.
So did you know that? Did you know that Kiyoshi was a skeptic about Gauquelin like you?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I thought you would be happy to learn that.
Yeah, I am happy to learn that. I'm always happy to find an agreement between me and Kiyoshi. Kiyoshi and I agree 100% on some things and disagree 100% on other
It's
things.
normal. It's
Yeah.
normal.
So,
And I agree with you about your obsessive curiosity. I'm exactly like when you said that. I connect 100% with that posture that you describe about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, we share that in common.
Yeah.
But
What I
Yeah, go ahead, Bernard.
just a quick question about your obsession with Gauquelin, because at some point you must have checked for a connection with the midheaven, as all his data has to do with career. The first thing one thinks in a more traditional astrological setting thinks of is the midheaven. Did you ever run any tests on the connection to the midheaven?
Are you asking?
No.
What I can say, what I checked, it's what is significant is middle of house 9. Not house 12 is complete. I mean, the significance is all over the house 12. But for house 9, it's lesser, and you have to concentrate in about 5 degrees in the middle of house 9.
In what house system?
Obviously the Placidus, because Placidus is equi-probabilistic. I mean, each house is the same probability of planet being into it.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't explain it well. Santino can explain better than me.
Yeah.
About
I
this
mean, that's
equiprobability of why did Gauquelin work with Placidus? Not because it's fashionable, because it's equiprobable.
yeah, he's actually working with a variation of Placidus, but it's almost identical. It's very,
Yeah,
very
he
similar.
divided in three. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what Placidus takes the equatorial arc from the
Yeah.
ascendant to the midheaven and
So
divides
if
it
you look at,
into equal
so if I'll
times.
be more precise, if you look at his sectors, he divided each houses in three with the same rules of equiprobability. And what is significant is not the whole house nine, it's the center sector of house nine. There are
Right.
three sector in each house of the number two.
Yeah, and to answer Bernard's question, I have not looked at it. I as time goes on, we have better and better data. And for me, the Gauquelin data is very, very powerful for looking at things that are not so sensitive to the birth time within 15 minutes. Because well over half the data is rounded off to the half hour. And, I'm just not, if I'm going to use it, I would remove all the data that's rounded
Mhm.
to the hour and half hour. If I'm
Me
going to look
too.
at planets and how, but when I said I'm obsessed with astrology research. I'm not obsessed with Gauquelin per se, but on that
Mhm.
particular day, I was looking for him for relief from my struggles. But you know, my compatibility research, which is one of my better research studies, uses over 20,000 um, um, husband and wife data. I would not be able to do that research without Gauquelin. I mean, we're so indebted to Gauquelin just for the data alone. I mean,
Mhm.
that there's no question about. His gift of the data collections is making a lot of what we do now possible. Uh, Whether he found anything or not, I don't even think is that important. What's really important is we have the data.
There's something else because you remember Chouinard, the French polytechnician at the beginning of the 19th century. He was very knowledgeable. He was the initiator of statistic research and astrology, and he made a lot of um, mistakes, not taking into account the non-uniformity of planetary movement. And Gauquelin was aware of all those mistakes, and he didn't made them. He was very, very rigorous about, you know, astronomical artifacts and a lot of things like that. So I admire his rigor.
Yeah, I didn't know that Gauquelin built directly off
Yeah,
the
he was the
work
very
of,
first.
and I
Yeah,
put the spelling here, Choisnard, if I remember right.
Yeah,
no, it's
he
different.
didn't. He
Different.
was inspired because Chouinard is the pioneer in France. So he's
Yeah.
been inspired like many others. I read Chouinard also, and it's a big source of inspiration. But everything he found is false. But I still admire him.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to build on the previous people. We can't judge earlier work on what we have today, which we wouldn't even have if it wasn't for these people. Ton, were you going to say something about?
Yeah, only one thing I want in favor of the Coquelin data for me, myself. That's the reason that I go back to study it in more detail than I ever done before, is because of John Eddy. John Eddy was inspired by the Coquelin data because he saw harmonics, the third and fourth harmonic patterns in the patterns from Coquelin, and that was the whole reason that he started with harmonics, and that is one of the key elements in vibrational astrology, using harmonic charts and harmonic patterns. So the work by John Eddy, who yeah, he died too early, but he did a lot of good work, and uh, and we are using John Eddy in vibrational astrology, and John Ennie was using Coquelin to discover harmonics. He was the very first one who did harmonics. Anyway.
Yes, exactly. I'm showing here on the screen one of my earlier uh, steps of progress in 2007, where I looked at the Gauquelin professional data to see if I could build a model that was consistent with what we were seeing in the harmonics theory, and developed a model that works very well. Most of it has 0.001 statistical significance, um, based on particular planets and particular vibrations. This is just to build a model, not to test it, to see if some consistent things could be found. And we did find them. And it reports all these results, starting with data visualization, then doing statistical analysis. Oh, a lot of it's only, yeah, this is where I test individual groups. But yeah, his data and the ability to work from it is fantastic. And in the videos that I showed you on Did Gauquelin Prove Astrology, I combined this with Gauquelin, and then the Gauquelin effect is much clearer. So it does, that is promising that these plus zones perhaps actually do exist. Yeah. But I'm just agreeing with you and showing some of my experience that his data is just unbelievably valuable. I it, I'm not sure that I would be where I am now with my own. I know I wouldn't be without his data. I mean, yeah. Um, okay. So we've got 15 minutes left. Any other things? This has been a very useful discussion because Bernard brought up a lot of things we tend not to think about that could
What
be
do you, what do you
influencing.
mean by other things? You mean other topics or?
Yeah, other topics. Any
Did you read my, I sent you yesterday morning a mail I sent to Christopher about my new research about rectification. I tried to explain to you a bit, but I just put it in words. Maybe you didn't have time because you're writing.
No, I saw it, but I didn't look at it yet.
I can explain it if you think we have time, but if other subject, I will just.
No, let's go ahead and talk about. Let me introduce what Vincent's doing. Is he's doing research on, um, you could call it rectification, but like, people rectify a chart. There's two ways that are commonly done. The most common way is by using forecasting methods and seeing if, according to forecasting method, it would, the birth, you adjust the birth time to see what time they would have to be born for things to happen. Another way to rectify a chart or to evaluate it is to see if the birth time matches the personality. The simple idea, and this is not exactly what Vincent did, but the simple idea is people say, "Oh,
Yes.
do you have Leo rising?" And then if you do, they've narrowed you down from 24 hours to 2 hours. So looking at the personality to see if it fits. Well, Vincent has this very sophisticated Mastro program, and he's programmed into it to look at the personality assessment using Mastro. If you went through all 1,440 minutes of the day, at what moment, which minute fits the personality determined by Mastro the best? And you can get a graph. So if the person's
Actually, it's too ambitious. What you said is.
No, I'm just explaining it conceptually.
Yeah, you're right, but it was now I reduced to 1 hour. Okay.
We'll get to that, but just conceptually.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
If the person was born at 10:07 a.m., maybe the graph would peak at that minute in terms of matching their personality. So if the person is born, if the Mastro analysis says the person was likely born between 10 a.m. and 12 noon, and they were born between 10 a.m. and 12 noon, this is extremely strong evidence to support astrology, that
Exactly.
it's actually able to detect when the person was born. And one of the
Yes.
fabulous things about this is you can collect more and more data. It's black and white, either they're born within that hour or they're not. So this new research Vincent's doing, if he continues to get positive results with it, it could be a massive, enormous breakthrough in astrology because it would give us a simple way to confirm that astrology works because astrology would be able to pick out within some time, say 1 hour, and then over, whatever it is, better than random. That would just, and so far you're getting positive results. So go ahead. I just wanted to introduce it.
Yeah, it's perfect. Actually, I've been influenced also getting there because you insisted when we were in Nashville not only to validate astrology on theoretical grounds, but also to get practical tools. So rectification is a perfect problem that suits the two. According to what you say on the 1,440 minutes in a day, last year I've done a research with events, and I had very interesting result. It's a big job. I needed 50, close to 15 events to be able to pinpoint a maximum close to the time of birth, like 12 minutes. Or it, and it was, I work with the royalty because their data is very accurate. So now I thought, actually, what happened when I came back from Nashville, I wanted to resume my chart matching research. Um, and it was my goal was to get the words extracted by AI instead of by me. In what I published in 20, the words from the book were extracted from me, and I could be accused of having I've been maybe I was biased in extracting the words, even if I didn't look at the charts. So I tried a lot of like 1 month with AI and with ChatGPT, Gemini, and so on to get keyword description of people, the same people I published in 20, that would give better results than I had with my words, and I didn't succeed. So it's very disappointing. And after several weeks struggling with ChatGPT, Gemini, I was never able to get them to generate psychobiographical keywords that would add outperform the lists I had previously created by manually extracting that from the book was published by Le Monde. So I therefore set that project aside and I turned to a related research, which is it's very similar because when you rectify after personality trait, instead of matching one person with his chart against other charts from other people, you matched one person to his chart to the minute against many other charts at different moments. And it with the personality, one full day is too ambitious. There's too many peaks. So I said, okay, let's do it in 1 hour, like we do very often in practice. So the idea is quite simple. I select the birth time of well-known individual by first I avoid time like 00. I keep the point 30, but 00 are too heavily rounded. Then I restrict the rectification search to the official birth hour. I mean, if you're born at 2:30, I restrict my research from 2 to 3 with 60 charts. So for one chart for each minute within that hour. This produced 60 lists of personality keywords with corresponding scores, their scores. So this idea is very similar to, maybe you know this, Suzelle Fizeau-Brèche when she's done the proof by 2. She worked with 120 5, I think, twin birds, and she just tried to discriminate between the two twins, which one is the more extrovert, which one is the more inhibited, and by looking at pixels like Saturn and Jupiter connecting with angles, especially the ascendant aspects and things like that. And she do it to the blind with the parents, and she said, okay, your two sons, A and B, the extrovert is blah blah blah, it's B, and the introvert is A. And the parents would no. She said, there's one like this, and the other one is like this. And the parent to the blind choose which one is which one. So she had very good result. I think she got 75 success on that. It's like tossing a coin. It's like half and half probability for a twin. So she had, I think it's 75 success. The weakness of that is that she's not holistic. She's not systemic. She worked only on specific strong factors, but still then it's pixel. With Mastro, I can encompass the whole personality with keywords. So then I asked ChatGPT. I work with different AI, and finally I'm back to ChatGPT for that. And I asked to identify from each list. Oh yeah, the full list. Oh yeah, that's interesting. When you do the 60 charts, this gives me a set of words, all words within the hour. So it's less than the corpus, the total corpus of Mastro. It's about, usually it gives you 200 words. And I give those words to ChatGPT, and I ask it to identify from those lists the 10 or 15 traits that best match the documented personality. Naturally, it will consult a large base of documentation before responding. And the trick is to ask it explicitly to present that work. I didn't do that at the beginning. I just trusted. Okay, check it, then give me your answer. That doesn't work. But in the protocol, after about 30 essays, I just oblige ChatGPT to make a report of that research. He is like this. And then he makes his own list of traits. Then he picked from that list the words in my list at the end that suits his own list. And this worked. And finally, there's also a new idea, and I'm very, very, very happy with this new idea. I never think of that. That's crazy, but we do it intuitively when we try to rectify intuitively with, the end is very simple. In addition to selecting the traits that best fit the subject, compatibility, I ask AI to identify the 10, 15, or 20 traits that are the least incompatible with the personality. And it's extremely fruitful. For example, I wrote to Christopher, you know him, you know how he is. So I said, if I was rectifying your birth time, which is 4:29 a.m., and one of the candidate charts within the hour produced such words as taciturn, which he is not, and aggressive, which he is not, that would provide strong evidence against any birth time where those traits receive particularly high scores. I try to avoid. So to find a time, it's something interesting, but in that process, we avoid certain times. You cannot be born that time because you would be such and such. So you can formalize that idea also. So it's a lot quicker to get, stronger to get a specific time. And the result, it's very encouraging. Now I got about 50 subjects, and how do I evaluate whether the protocol is successful? For each subject, I calculate the absolute difference between the official birth time, which is a loose target. I know it's not perfect. And the rectified birth time. Then I compute the mean of these, the average of all those differences in absolute value. Naturally, I want that to be as small as possible. The perfect score would be zero mean. It could mean that my rectified birth time fall always on the target. That would be that would be ridiculous, because we know that legal birth time are not good, but we want it close to zero. Now, to assess statistical significance, I use a Monte Carlo protocol because it's not clean. You got more birth with 30.15 for 40 minutes. So you cannot analyze it with a theoretical distribution because it's very heterogene. So Monte Carlo is perfect. What I do, I randomly shuffle the rectified times in each set of 50 people. I shuffle the rectified birth time to produce chaos, random chaos. And I do it 100,000 or even 1 million times to recalculate the same mean I just told you about, the average of those distance from the rectify and legal time. So at each permutation, I recalculate the mean. As expected, I hope the simulated mean will generally be larger than the real one, the original one. I then determine where the actual mean falls within that distribution. This is Monte Carlo protocol. And at the moment, I have analyzed 50 subjects, and the protocol yields a p-value of 3 divided by 1,000, which is not so impressive. I wouldn't publish that, but I'm on a good way. I hope it will decrease with new subjects. If I publish this work, I will also perform an independent replication using a separate set of subjects that I have deliberately kept aside. This untouched validation sample was created using objective selection criteria, not to be criticized about bias, what you call editorial bias. And it will provide an ultimate test whether the rectification method is valid. I like this line of research because it proves, if it's successful, it's like Santino said before, it provides a strong evidence for the validity of this important branch of astrology that depends on accurate birth times. And there's, moreover, it offers a practical tool that complements the traditional event approach to chart rectification. This is it.
Yeah, so
maybe you can explain it better than
well,
me.
Yeah, I don't want to go too much more. We're at our hour and a half, but I have
Oh.
just one quick question. I think it's quick. If I mean, I have a lot of questions, but I think this one is a quick one, is you're measuring the mean time from of the rectified time from the actual time.
In
right?
absolute value, if you're 10 minutes
The absolute
before
value,
10 minutes,
right?
okay,
I understand. Yeah, so what was, I'm guessing that you have like, was the rectified time with the actual births, it could be up to 30 minutes. Was it like 10 minutes
okay,
off?
good question. Now, I observed systematically, it's always depending on the word, the list, and ChatGPT. It's around 15. The best I can do is about 15 minutes average gap.
Okay, so it's 15 minutes. Now, my next question is, with the shuffled control, with the Monte
20
Carlo.
minutes. 20 minutes.
Okay, so it's 15 minutes versus 20 minutes.
And
Okay.
random gives you, the random distribution gives you close to 20 minutes. Yes. So this 5 minute is very significant. Excuse me. Yeah, 5 minutes is 15, 20, yeah. 5 minutes is extremely significant.
Right.
It's a
Okay.
lot better than chaos, random chaos.
Right. Yeah, I was just curious, like what we were looking at. So cool. And
And you know, you agree that this 15 minutes is something that we should expect, because if we don't get that, we don't rectify. We just take the time. We expect that it will be off the target, not exactly on the legal time, because there's no reason to do rectification if you come to zero.
yeah, I mean, the main thing is that you're getting statistical significance. And then,
Mhm.
if you continue to, and you're just at the beginning of this research,
Yeah,
if this gets better and better and it's replicable, then it leads to all kinds of questions about how accurate are birth times, blah, blah, blah. And
actually,
is,
the toughest part, you know what it was? To tame that autistic little dog. To train ChatGPT took about 1 week with at least 30 or 40 trials to get the good prompt to have what I want.
wow.
There's a lot of problem.
Yeah,
Like, that's crazy.
yeah,
I look my temper. I lose my temper at some moment. I was like impatient. I was nearly angry about what 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 you do. How come you do that? It's
yeah,
explicitly asked not to do it. He said, "Oh, I apologize." Blah blah. No, I want you to tell me how should ask it to you. Then he had me a sentence. Now, at the moment, my request was big, 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 because he had things. And at
right,
one moment, I said, okay, that's crazy. It's too big. I gave it the whole thing. I said, now I want you to resume to make,
right,
and he's done a perfect job to make it smaller. And since that moment, it worked quick, to the point. And when I check, because I check everything he says, it makes sense. It's words I would
right.
have picked myself for people I know.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned this because, again, Vincent and I have a lot of the same experiences. I have the same experiences that if I do something a little bit differently sometimes, like I'm working on this kind of research and I frame it differently, whatever, get it a little more precise, all of a sudden I start getting good results. So one of the things with research is the persistence and the creativity you have to use. It's often a war to try to, we can spend huge amounts of time, like when I did the athletics research within the last half year, it took me a month to download the time that the baseball players hit a home run within 15 minutes. That was like a month of work to get that data. And I wouldn't, and without ChatGPT, it would have taken me years. Um, so the data's out there, but it's kind of scrambled around and whatever. And anyway, the devil is in the details. So a lot of times people say, oh, you didn't find it, end of story. Well, there's a million things that could be adjusted, improved. It's an ongoing
Yeah,
uh, process. It's not a
yeah.
binary on or
Did you
off.
notice Antonino, did you notice a big problem with AI, ChatGPT? They act as autistic, brilliant autistic Asperger. Because if
Yes.
you ask it or him or it or her, uh, very accurate. If it's too accurate, he will tell you, I cannot do it. You're Because it's impossible. You ask me this. I'll say you have to loosen up sometimes, because he's too perfectionist to answer. Did you notice this type of behavior
Yeah.
that
What I've
we
what
see
I
in autistic people?
yes, what I've noticed the same thing, and also what I've noticed is that if I have an ongoing detailed dialogue, I start getting really excellent answers because as I dialogue and I contradict or disagree or I provide additional information, it instantly adjusts. And sometimes people use Chat GPT, whatever AI platform, and they ask it a question and think, okay, that's its answer. No, that's the beginning of a discussion for me. Like, if it's a simple enough question, okay, fine. But very often I have to provide more information, qualify, and together we sort it out and 99% of the time reach an agreement. Like, oh my God, that's what I'm looking for.
There's something also that we should say that it's like Wikipedia, ChatGPT results are not permanent. If we do research for the posterity, we want something permanent. This is the reason why at the beginning of the meeting, I said I was building a big file of simulated big five answers to personality. I should have done it another way. I could have done it another way. You ask ChatGPT or Gemini to answer the test for Bill Clinton, it will make it very good, but it's not permanent. So what I like is I go in databases done by scholars, historians, and psychologists who simulated answer, and this is findable for the posterity. It doesn't move. It's fixed. So it's better.
Excellent. That's
It's
excellent.
better. I try to avoid GPT answers. In
Right.
that case, it's more rigorous.
Yes. No, that's very, very good. And there's, yeah, to define the sources and stuff so that it
Yeah.
doesn't change. Okay,
Because
we
if it
are
moves, it cannot be checked.
right,
People will want to check it if they don't get the same answers.
right, right, exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, then the research is not replicable, which is fundamental.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, are we good? Any last things? We're 15 minutes over, so are we good?
There was someone who commented in the chat.
Oh, okay, thank you. Let me check the chat real quickly. Chat.
And have to run a single chart.
Oh,
In my new
I didn't see this from Ryan. Oh my God, I should have addressed this. I didn't see it.
No, neither. Is that person present for the moment? I don't see.
Yeah, he's here, Ryan.
Okay.
Hello, I'm new to researching. I would like some information about publishing research. I have a study on Saturn with a p-value of 0.004 and didn't have to run a single chart. The main place for publishing that we recommend,
Yes.
if you have very polished research, is the Correlation Journal.
Yeah.
It is the one and only place to publish that I know of high level research because it's peer reviewed by people who are trained in statistics and research methods. So you can just Google it and learn about it. You can subscribe. I'm in the United States, it comes out of England, so I just get the online version, which is very handy and reasonably priced. But Correlation Journal is the only journal that I know of that publishes attempting to be more academic and rigorous. The various organizations have journals and they call themselves research organizations, but they're very, very loose, to put it mildly. So that's a place to publish. And I'm sorry we didn't get to discuss it, but we could, if you can make the next meeting, I don't know if you can or not, Ryan, I can make your topic number one and we can go over what you've done and get some feedback that would be good to get before you submit it to Correlation Journal. So Ryan, does that make sense? I don't know if you can make the next meeting. Otherwise, you'd have to wait a month, or you can just go ahead and, of course, just submit it. But I'm sorry I didn't see your post earlier. So Ryan says, awesome. That's what I love to hear. Perfect timing. All right. And Vincent says, write to the new editor, Tom Stedall. That's Stedall. he's the new editor of the journal, and you can email him. I'll copy and paste this that Vincent put. Thank you, Vincent. Let me put it right on the screen. You can also go into the chat and see it, but let me put this on the screen. Editor, well, it's obvious from the email address. editor@correlationjournal.com. Just email, that'll go to Tom, and you can give like an abstract of your research and tell him you're submitting it. Yeah. Yeah, you're very welcome, Ryan. We have a clear answer to that one. Correlation Journal. Yeah, and the Cosmobiology Institute, we've decided that we're going to be providing a lot of new services over the coming year or two, but we'll have like kinds of journals and whatever, but we're going to probably continue to recommend Correlation Journal for highly polished, when you have something really good and done very well and you've gotten interesting results, that can go to Correlation Journal.
I'd like to ask to add something. Tom Stedel, I know him personally. I met him in London. He's a very nice person, very tidy, very, very perfectionist, PhD in physics, and very, very brilliant. And he's he looks like very strict, but he's very helpful, helping person.
Oh, wonderful. So we have a great new editor. He's helpful and rigorous. Yes. And for those of you who are not experienced in academic research, it is nothing like what astrologers do. If you base your research on what astrologers do, it's going to get tossed out immediately. You have to have things like how did you collect your sample? What is your population? What kind of selection bias is involved? Do you have a control group? We're doing here with Cosmobiology Institute and also with Correlation Journal is reasonably academic level. And that academic level is very different from what, if you haven't been in an area where you had to do research at a graduate school level, people are fairly naive about. So, and that's one of the great things about this meeting is that you can come and we can discuss what you've done and see if it's, at the level that's needed for something like Correlation Journal. And if it's not, it's a long, long process. That's why we need discussion groups like we have here to go over stuff to continually refine. And, Vincent's story of, the quote torture that he goes through just to prompt ChatGPT properly, taking a month. This is what's involved in getting stuff down really, really well. But you don't have to get things down really, really well. We can work together on what you have so far. That's also informative. But Correlation Journal is for when you've crossed that line to something really polished and you're ready to present it at that level. But we need stuff that's before the finish line, because you won't get to the finish line if we don't work together and support each other and brainstorm. Okay, I think we're good. You're very welcome, Ryan. And I think we'll close up and maybe I'll see some of you at the next meeting. Otherwise, I'll hope to see you next month. Thank you.
Thank you.
Santino, are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, I just had a funny thought. I remember that you didn't publish in Correlation, and it made me think of one of my heroes, Linus Pauling. He was criticized when he published General Public, Vitamin C in a Common Cold, and about cancer. He just bypassed the literature, the scientific literature like Nature and everything, and he published for, like you, a book. It doesn't, yeah, he published also on very, very quantic mechanism, but I mean, those results that interested general public, he just bypassed the scientific literature, and he published, and he was criticized for that. So it made me think of you.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I have not published in Correlation Journal is for me to write the paper.
Uh,
It'll take at least a week for me to take
at
what I've
least.
done
So yeah, yeah.
and just to write the paper properly. Now, if I'm a university professor or whatever, that's what they do. You take a
Mhm.
week off or several weeks just to explain it. And in the process of explaining it, you'll refine and improve it, which also happens when I write my books
But
or
it's boring. I agree. It's
it's
boring.
very boring, tedious, and I'm I'm so hyped up. Like my brain is very hyper, and um, I'm just so anxious to get on to the next thing that I'm just too lazy to take the time
But there's two
to do that.
ways to do it if ever you want to do it. You could work with someone who could do that job for you, a clerk, but you
Hmm.
publish with both names. I know you don't care to put your name with another name
Yeah,
because you're not in ego. Or you can ask AI to help you. It's incredible.
yeah,
And you
yeah.
know that. You know that.
I know that now that AI will will probably do 80 to 90% of the work. So I'm thinking about.
It's not cheating because this is your research.
No, it's not cheating.
It's original research, but you just
Yeah,
formulate
I've
it.
tried it a couple of
I
times. I
mean,
took something and it did a marvelous job. I was amazed.
Yeah, yeah.
It just, it would cut down a week to maybe 3 or 4 hours, and that would be worth doing. So, yeah. Somebody was going to say
I
something?
mean, yes. Santino.
Yeah, hi, Desdale.
Yes. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Uh, all right. What I want you guys to do eventually is to check on the real importance of midpoints. Uh, I know that isn't from the get-go is elegantly it's the way everybody go and say, well, it's a good marker to indicate what's going on in a transit
Mhm.
or a natal chart, but it can be a deceptive um, point in the chart. I
Mhm.
just want you guys to do a rigorous uh, assessment of a midpoint and see if it really gives any real importance to the chart.
It's been done a bit by Kiosti Tyrvainen about pastors and mathematicians. And in my protocol, I showed very clearly that the matching test uh, decreased the significance. The p-value was less meaningful when I removed midpoints in the description of natal charts. And I even went as far as finding that if I add the midpoint without the 8 harmonic 45 and 135 degrees, I had better result with that protocol than putting the 45 and 135 degrees 8 harmonic midpoints. So
Oh,
I don't.
what I'm saying, this is just the last of the meeting, but what I'm saying is that when you're approaching the midpoint,
Yes,
do you either use the transiting
I
body
use a
on
lot, a
the,
lot. Yes.
Hold on, let
but
him
but
talk. Yeah.
but 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 what I discover is that there's a issue with the midpoint because it does not show up any real value. It is elegant in its approach, but when you go to microscopically, there's a difference that you get. The midpoint at on a mathematical level, it's an equidistant point. And if you apply quantum maths and all that involved with that, you're not going to get anything but a point where there is a null effect. It it provides that there's some magnification, but there is a null effect when you have midpoints. But this is all depends on whether the starting point is you have a planet that is the slower moving body against the faster moving body. The linear point A and B, the faster moving body at the very beginning, and the slower beginning of slower moving body at the end shows more visible importance than when the 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 faster moving body begins the point, and the slower. So there's a difference in which body is at the very beginning of the linear point, the linear A and B. There is
It's,
there is a
yes.
there's a different results
Yeah, but what you
in the
say,
casting.
everything you say is true, is right. But it could be also applied to regular transit aspect or to harmonics. I mean, everything is. I mean,
No,
even an aspect is something that
when
doesn't exist in real. I mean,
no, no,
midpoint is a different type of aspect. That's all.
no. What you with this, you can't really cast over it and making drifting response on it. This is very. It's a very taxing approach to go and get the answer on this. But everybody and anybody will say midpoint produce a lot of information. But when you go in the microscopical level of its operation, you're going to get different results. By mathematical order, the equidistance creates a null effect of the two bodies. But the only time when that is a difference is when you apply the which body has a faster or slower moving, then you have a difference in the outcome
Yeah, let me
of
just
the
say,
midpoint.
This is speculative. This is not research.
no, let me just say,
And that's not speculative.
Sure, sure.
Especially coming from me. I just don't make arbitrary response on things. If I come and ask a question, it's fermented, and it has some merit to the argument.
what,
If it's fully examined, a midpoint, it is most part can be just a null point. It's a 0 point where it doesn't
When
have
I
any
excuse
real
me,
effect.
when I say speculative, I recognize it's elegant and it's not superficial. It's deep what you say, but it's speculative because it's not been tested
And
experimentally.
Santina know very well that anything that is elegant usually amounts to really zero effect sometimes. I mean, it in some parts it does, but most elegance in astrology and mathematics usually prove to be nothing.
what I would suggest, let me just say one thing, because we are, now a half hour overtime, is
Mm.
if you give some concrete examples, Desdale, of where you expect a certain kind of result, depending on the arrangement of the planets and their speeds and so on, and then examples of where you expect a different result. Then we have some concrete examples that could be used to make sure we implement your idea properly in research. Because if there's no doubt that there's variables connected to anything, say midpoints, that we're not using. How far apart are the planets, etc. So, if you've identified something that looks like a very likely way, it gets like the homogeneity that distinguishes certain midpoints from other midpoints that we don't look at. I just think some concrete examples that you could put in a paper, an online article that we could use as to make sure we're implementing your idea properly. Does that make sense?
You talking to me or are
Yeah,
you talking
Des.
to someone?
Yeah, I'm just
Oh,
saying,
oh,
just to finalize this, I think, I know Des, and I know how hard he works and how many charts he does and whatever, and he comes up with these very innovative ideas. I think, yeah, let's check it out. Let's take it to the next level. We just need to have it more concrete to make sure we implement the idea properly when we evaluate it.
okay. I just say this as the last word in.
Yeah.
Um, is no one here. Um, I've never really observed any sort of difference or outcomes with a midpoint in any small parts, in any of their rigorous midpoint. I would say I'm the only one who do midpoints rigorously to find out these things, or we just do things, a hit and miss here and there scenario where we do midpoint. I mean, everybody do midpoints in astrology, but how much of it where you do so to where you observe that there is something that is not there, we put more importance to it because it's very elegant and nobody never really checked it.
How do you
And
check that? How can you, I don't understand how you check it.
and yeah, you can check it by transit, and this is how you check it. You can check it by transit, or you can check it by natal position. What you
Yes,
do,
okay.
you take this just this we over time now. So um, we check at, for example, Mars and Jupiter. You take a number of people who have Mars and Jupiter, and you first go for the ones that have the faster moving body and the slow the at for the fast no the slower moving body is the first the, and then the faster moving body is the second point. You check that point, and what you do, you look for conjunctions of that point. And then what would happen over a period of time, you will see that there is not much of a significance with the Mars Jupiter showing up anything but a null effect. Whereas, and this is mathematical in its origin when I'm talking about its importance and its
Yeah, but
null effect.
yeah, but what is your
And and
protocol?
and
What is your
and
protocol to
and, and,
check? I don't understand.
and does reside out of your normal procedure and take this very um, this very examination without any normal application. Just take it simply. Just go and say, well, let me just check this Mars Jupiter and let me do several them uh, and see what results we get against.
Yeah,
You have a better result. You have a better results of a meaning having no midpoint, but having more extension, a
but
extended point, meaning
what you call
a
excuse
point.
me, I don't understand what you call a result. What is a result for you? Do you have an objective criteria to determine?
Let me
No,
just
no,
I
no,
say,
don't
no,
understand.
no,
hold
no,
on,
no, 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 no. Vincent, what I'm saying, you're tightly placed with the procedures that you do. Sometimes take yourself out of a rigid procedure and just lightly do
Yes,
it
I do that all the time.
no, no, you would have to do it in a different fashion than way you do it. I'm not arguing with you whether you applicate it, but I'm just saying softly that